So we're going to start with the leaves. I'm looking at my reference. I'm using the tip of my brush here, just coming in and filling those little lines in. And remember, the watercolor does not know the lines are there, so you have to be careful in laying that down. I'm going to come in here, and on this side of this leaf I'm going to put some green in, and actually I will, because I may remix paint later, I want to go ahead and get a few places over here with that same green so that if I have to mix a new color of green, I've evenly put that one color around my painting. You can also choose a different color of green for the different types of leaves according to the flowers that are here. Okay, got some good overall here. And then one thing, I'm going to take a little bit of yellow and I'm going to put that in here on this leaf and a little behind that, and I'll paint over that in a bit. I'll do it again here. Doesn't have to be a strong yellow. It can be kind of muted, but it will help to give some dimension to your leaves when you paint over them. Okay. So now I'll continue to paint. You can wait till it dries or kind of blend it together right there on the paper. And I'll pay a little bit of attention to the reference as to what is a flower and what is a leaf. And if you get it wrong, no one will know the difference. I've got sort of this brighter green over here. Help make a few things pop. And now I'll go with this kind of bright green. I add a little bit of brown to mute that. I can test it over here first and see if I like that color. And now I'll go over some of these leaves with a little bit of a darker tone, adding the layers and the dimension in there. So now I'll come in and cover up that yellow. I'm using the very fine tip of my brush here. I sell these brushes in my shop. The water is included, so if you've got a dip brush, it would be the same thing but have a little tiny tip to it for these little tiny drawings. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start putting in some color. If you have the tropical set that I sell, then I'm using Sunset here. And every time I've painted this, I've made it a little bit different, and that's a ton of fun. So if you see any of my work, you'll see that they're a little bit different. Now I'm clearing my brush off and pulling some of that pigment into the petals to give it two different layers of dimension, and you really don't want to have a strong border line all the way around or it'll look kind of funny. And this one right here has too much. That's kind of a nice little effect there that you can see where I use my paper towel You want to use a clean area to dab so that you don't transfer any colors there. Okay, and then I've got this little branch in here. Creating that wreath. It's very organic, so I'm okay with however the lines turn out. Come in and add some here. Now if you're doing a line, you always want to pull toward yourself and keep your brush very upright so that you don't make a big fat line. I'm going to use Sunset again over here. I want to make sure that leaf is pretty well dry before I touch that so that it doesn't blend together. Key to watercolor is making sure that it's already dry if you don't want your colors to mix. And sometimes you can use the fact that it's wet as a little technical feature to let them kind of bleed together. Now I'm clearing off my brush. You can wait till that dries and pull it together, or you can just barely touch those edges, leave a little bit of white space of your paper. You can always go over it later if you want. And I'm going to go in here and add some more dark just to make it pop. There we go. Now I'm going to use more of a red color to do some of these berries or little red bud flowers. Put that in the center here. And I'll get this flower right here. Looks like I painted those red before. They're green now, so I'll leave them that way and get a few of these. Get some of these up here. You can see that. Clearing my brush off. I'm going to do this coral color flower over here. It's good to kind of think ahead about how you're going to plan your colors so that you don't end up with too much pink or too much purple in one area. And I want a little more pigment at the edges of that. And because it's so wet, I'm going to let that dry just a bit before I work with it a little bit more. In the meantime, I'll work with this Wreath color, which is a purple, kind of an indigo color. And I'm leaving the white of the paper in here to give it a highlight. Sort of look. And I've got this purple one. I'm going to get a little more stronger paint in here. And what I mean is more of the minerals, less watered down. The more watered down it is, obviously the lighter it is, because you can see the white of the paper underneath. In this case, giving it more of a lavender look. I'll paint this one, giving a little bit of dimension by adding additional layers in here. And now I have a clear brush and I'm going to just lift some of that pigment and spread it around so it's not bright white, but it gives the petals some differentiation. Add that yellow to the middle and get a little branch into here. You can always come in and add shadows and other things to make it a little more refined. But that's the basic.